Welcome to the Commonwealth Home Ownership Podcast, the real estate investing podcast for Canadians. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, you've come to the right place. If you're looking for a way to take control of your life through real estate investing, stay tuned and be sure to join us at cwho.ca, your hub for all things real estate investing in Canada.
Okay, man, I'm set now.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah, you were about to say something in regards to demystifying raising joint venture capital.
So I wanted to do an episode on demystifying joint venture capital, because I find a lot of, especially when you're starting off, first of all, when you're starting off and you see all these people with, 50 doors, 100 doors, you're like, how is it possible? How is it possible they can buy 100 doors? Right? That just blows my mind. But then you start talking to them, and everyone who has gone anywhere in real estate uses joint venture capital. Right? And you look at joint venture capital, and you see these big projects that are multi-million dollars, and people putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars in, millions of dollars in, and it just seems a very daunting process to attract that kind of money. And especially and they start talking about accredited investors and all that stuff. But then you realize when you really boil it down, it doesn't really have to be on that scale. Right? Then it doesn't have to be anything extravagant or fancy. It really just comes down to, it's like, hey, buddy, I got a little bit of money. You got a little bit of money. Like, you want to do a deal together? And it really just comes down to that, right? So I think I just want to talk a little bit about that, and kind of where is the best place to find joint ventures, and how to best approach a joint venture in terms of, getting someone on board with doing a deal together.
So where do you think the best place is to find a joint venture?
I think here's the thing with a joint venture in the first place is someone has to trust you enough to give you, especially if you're the real estate expert, if you're the one running the show, if you're the one putting in the work, and you just need someone to put in the capital to kind of get a project off the ground, you need someone to be able to trust you enough to give you significant amount of money, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 or more of their money to go into a project together. So ideally, it would be someone that knows you quite well. So the best place, I think, in my opinion, to start with, if you don't have any joint ventures, you don't know where to look for, is just ask your family and friends.
Yeah, because the relationships that you're developing with potential investors or other real estate investors, that can take a lot of time to build and to fortify. It's funny because you have discussions with people that almost get frustrated, or they're impatient because they're unable to put a deal together, or they're seeing other people put deals together. But what they maybe don't realize is that those relationships have been developing over long periods of time, and that's really kind of maybe what they should be focusing on, is actually developing strong relationships with their network and the people that they're meeting, before expecting people just to hand over a bucket load of money to to take and invest into something, And the other thing too is that investors want to know, or people that you're going to be working with on joint ventures, they want to know that you're invested too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're investing your own money into real estate, and it doesn't necessarily have to be into the deal that you're looking to do with your investment partner, it can just simply be with your own spouse, or your family members, or even other people, or just on your own. But if you're already invested into real estate, that bodes well for your investment partners, because then they can see that you're doing as you would do with their money, like you're already doing. And you're developing experience as well. You're developing experience, and you're developing a track record that is going to bode well when you're presenting opportunities to new investors.
And that brings me to another point too. I see that with a lot of newer investors, how they think they can just go and get joint venture money without ever having done a deal on their own. And not to say it's not possible, but I think it's easier for someone to trust you with their money if they know you can handle an investment on your own. If you've, like say, if you have a track record and and you've shown that you've been successful with previous investments, then it's a little bit more reassuring to your partner that say, okay, if I give him money, then he'll be able to do well with it as well. So I think that's also,
yeah, and it's not necessarily about the deal either. Some people get really wrapped up in, oh, how can nobody want to invest in this property with me? This is the best return on investment. Like, this property is unbelievable. I have found the best deal. And yet people are not flocking to me to give me money. And I think that goes back to just the age-old adage that people actually invest in people. People are investing in you. It's not necessary. Like, yeah, the deal needs to be a solid deal, but that's really kind of secondary to people actually investing in you first.
Yeah, they're not giving money to the deal, they're giving money to you.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you're in charge of looking after that and managing that from a financial perspective, or, whether it be a property management perspective as well, or however you structure it. But I think that's just so important to acknowledge is I guess the key takeaway for a couple of those points is that you've got to be a little bit patient. You've got to develop strong relationships, and you've also got to develop a little bit of experience on your own before you're really going to be able to, or likely able to garner interest from venture capital investors.
And I think it's also important to focus on the relationship first, personally.
100%. Yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah, before you look at it from a financial perspective, I think you should try to develop that relationship from a friendship perspective first. And then, over time, if they're willing to, so you want to be, not to say that you want to be friends with all your business partners, but at the same time, I think it's a good place to start if you we already have the same interests together, you might not necessarily want to go into a deal right away, but I think it's good to develop that friendship first, and then to develop that trust, that, the camaraderie, and then you can consider doing a deal down the road.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because often where you've developed good relationships with people over time, and maybe they know what you do initially. They know you do real estate, or they know you invest, or what have you. But at that point in time, in the early days, or initial stages of a relationship, or maybe it's a strong relationship with people that you already know, and there's just no interest to invest with you. But sometimes that can change over time. Down the road, just to your point, that by actually focusing on developing strong relationships, it can just lead to future investment interest, rather than having the intention of doing an investment. And I don't know, it kind of goes back to just having the right intentions. You know what I mean? But I think that's a really good point, is that just focus on the relationship, build strong relationships. And, it's amazing as to what can develop just from simply that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at all your relationships, there's really like three levels, right? There's your friends and family that, you're comfortable with being around. And then you got your acquaintances, and then you got everybody else. Right. And so, and really the best place to look for joint ventures, I think, is in that initial group, that friends and family group, where people already know you and trust you. And then, then you can occasionally, you might be able to find someone who are friends of friends or associates, after you've built up enough of a reputation, or, have a good enough track record, that people outside that circle in that circle might consider investing with you, because, they trust the people that know you. And rarely, Very rarely would you, with someone, with some random person off the street come and like, shut up and take my money.
Yeah, I have one yeah, in JV that's like that, but only one.
Yeah.
But and I think you know, because you're involved. But yeah, other than that, it really is fortified on relationships, and I think that's the key starting point.
Yeah, and for example, most of my JVs, I've known them for years, and like no one like that. I would say everybody I'm invested with are either family or good friends. I would say most, the majority have, very few are just who have invested with me are just people I've known for a short time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once you get started and you've done a couple or a few joint ventures and you are within that circle, it's not long before, just through general conversation that you find people may reach out to you just based on the fact that you have done some joint ventures with friends and family, and they're talking to other people that are also interested in the industry, maybe not necessarily sure how to get involved, and you just find yourself being contacted by maybe that next tier. Maybe they are people that more an acquaintance than in that kind of inner circle, but relationships can develop just from those secondary conversations taking place and people talking about their experience with you on the investment front. And that kind of leads me into a key point about how you manage like the financial component of your investments and how you present or report back to your investment partners, and kind of just that level of professionalism that you're able to provide them with the financial reporting that really bodes well for their conversation with other people that have maybe invested in real estate and don't receive that type of reporting.
Yeah, and I just want to go back a little bit, but in terms of them trusting you, you have to be sure you trust them as well, right? Because most of my joint ventures, we have a shared joint account, a joint bank account, right? So the trust goes both ways in the sense that I have to trust them not to just start stealing money out of the bank account.
Yeah, that's 100% true as well. Yeah, because it's really, really interesting because there's bills to pay.
Yes.
There's bills to pay. There's things to pay, and you've got to stay on top of that thing, or you've got to stay on top of that stuff, and make sure that your accounts stay up to date, are maintained. But along the way, there's random expenses that need to be covered. So that's a really good point, because if you're not providing any element of financial reporting, it's really can be daunting for the investment partner that is just unaware of transactions that are happening, or they're just not sure what something might be. But also maybe they're just not being told about it, or there is no report that shows them, okay, well, you spent this much on bookkeeping for the month, or a maintenance cost, or whatever it might be.
And you're right. And to the point of bookkeeping, I think it's important that once you get to the joint venture process, it's important to kind of, again, up that professionalism a little bit, right? As opposed to just doing it yourself, you can do your own books if if you're good at it or you like it, whatever that may be. But I think when you get to the joint venture bit, I think it's important to be able to provide those reports, to keep to keep that transparency open, to provide as much communication, financial and verbal wise, as much as possible, just to ensure that they're comfortable with their own investment, so that they know where all the money's going, and they can see how much money they're making on a quarterly basis.
I would say it's 100% necessary. Like you said, Phil, if you can do your own books and you're managing your own properties, and you don't have joint venture partners, then maybe it's just a little simpler and you don't need to go to that extent. But I would say if you're doing joint ventures with people, that it's absolutely a necessity to have proper bookkeeping and accounting done on your behalf to provide the correct information to your venture partners. And also so that, when you get maybe at the end of investment, there's potentially some confusion as to what has transpired over the term, or, your investment partner, maybe they were expecting something different. At least you have the records easily presentable, and you can walk through all the financials. And the financials should tell a story that should show a picture of the way the investment has performed, essentially.
No, and absolutely, and you know what, and it's good too, because personally, I find it's great for keeping my financials on track as well.
Well, you're working on your bookkeeper schedule. So.
Well, really, because I remember the first couple of properties I've invested in. Like I did accounting. I did my bookkeeping maybe every few months. Right? You just let crap pile up, and you have all this like a box of receipts on your desk, and then you just, okay, I got a weekend free. Let's sit down. Let's go through these receipts. Or at the end of the year, you're like, oh my God, I got these receipts to do. I got like 2 weeks of, I got like a whole year of stuff to go through, and it'll take me 2 weeks to do it. And it's a nightmare. But before having the bookkeeping and knowing that you have to provide these reports, and so it forces you to keep on top of your bookkeeping, so that it's also less stressful in the long run as well, which is nice.
Well, yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that on a yearly basis with venture partners.
No. And once you get past 2 or 3 properties, like that just becomes a nightmare. That becomes like, the month from hell if you have to do bookkeeping on 5 properties and you got 5 boxes of receipts and you don't remember what happened, 8 months and 3 days ago.
Yeah.
like what happened? Where did that charge come from? I don't remember. Like, and you're digging through your box of receipts trying to find that charge.
Yeah, but could you imagine trying to present that to a venture partner? Could you imagine saying, here's your year-end financial statement, and then them asking questions about what happened in February? 12 months ago, you're providing them a report for the year, and they're asking about expenses from 9 to 12 months ago. Like, there's just no way. And once you get into the multiple doors, multiple properties, and you're trying to provide reporting for all these different investments, like you've got to stay up to date on a monthly basis. You've got to provide at a minimum quarterly reporting. And like you said, that actually helps you stay up to date.
Absolutely. And I guess moral of the story for our listeners, moral of the story is get a bookkeeper. Once you
Yeah, 100%.
It makes your life so much easier. It is amazing. You don't even know. If you've never had a bookkeeper, you don't even know how much better your life could be. So
yeah, and the amount of time, like, it is just such a worthwhile investment for the amount of time it saves you.
And not to mention, when I got a bookkeeper, I realized I was doing all my shit wrong. I was like, oh shit! Like, all this stuff I've not been allocating to the right, as allocating the books properly. I mean, like, my accountant sorts them out at the end of the year, but it just lowers your accounting bill too, because then your accountant doesn't have to sort everything out properly.
Yeah, for sure. You know what though, it's a great way to present an opportunity to a potential investor as well, to be able to say, look, these are the typical reports that I provide to my joint venture partners, and this is what you can expect on a quarterly basis. I think that's a great way to show your level of professionalism to potential investment partners, to give them some peace of mind that they have, or you provide, that level of transparency. That they're going to be able to see income, rental income, and any outgoings. They're going to be able to see that on the reports, and people want to know. They want to know. And
really, by the time you get into joint ventures, not that you shouldn't have started it when you start investing, but it's really more of a business now, right? It's officially a business now. You're running a business. You're not just doing a side hustle. You're not really doing a hobby anymore. It's when you're starting to use other people's money. It's when you're responsible for other people's money. It's a business now. and you should run it as such.
Yeah, it's also a great way to see how your investment's performing against what you presented at the early stages of the opportunity. You know, it's great. I find it's really it's quite good to have an appraisal done after you've acquired an investment to see how close you are with your estimated value of the property, especially if it's a new build, or maybe you're buying something under market, or you're going to fix something up, and you're projecting an estimated value. It's really quite cool to actually see what that value is after the fact and see how close you are to what you projected and what you presented to your investment partner, as well as cash flow too. You know, like we all run the numbers and we utilize our joint venture calculators and whatnot, and we produce a performer or whatever it is that we're going to present, or how we present our numbers, and to see what your cash flow numbers are, what your projected after repair value is. You know, it's I find it's kind of, it can shine a light on, I guess, your experience. When you're close to the numbers that you're projecting, that's a really good sign.
And every time you get those reports, you can use it to tweak your performance as well, right? You can, it's a good way to improve your numbers, improve your judgment for the next time around.
Yeah, 100%.
So now you have real world numbers to compare against instead of just, hypothesis and, educated guesswork, I guess. It's the best way to put
well,
it.
you've got actuals to reference against. You're not just basing it on a forecast. It's the market's going to go up and down for the rest of the time. The market's going to go up and down. So, it's funny because when you look back at a little while ago, before pre-COVID, there's no way you can put together a projection or a performer that says, hey, here's my pandemic performer. It's like, in the case of a pandemic, this is what the numbers might look like. There's just no way. And if anybody has ever done that, I would love for them to put a comment below. Let us know. But, it is just an estimate. Like, a performer is just an estimate. And when you're reading, if you're looking to invest into a joint venture, you should really take heed of what's on the performer. Really take time to review it and run your own numbers. Do your own calculations to see if you get the same as what is being presented to you. We talk a lot about being the real estate expert and being on the side where you obtain venture capital. But if you're on the other side and you're looking to invest into a joint venture, ask a lot of questions, but also run the numbers yourself and see where you end up. See what return on investment projection you get based on your numbers. And if you know some realtors, hey, reach out to some realtors and say, hey, what do you think this property is going to be worth in this area?
Or, if you know any other investors, run it by them as well. If you don't feel confident in your ability to run the numbers, then I would definitely reach out to any investors that you might know to ask them what their opinion is of the deal, to make sure that what they project is similar to what's on the performa as well.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, look, joint ventures are just a fantastic way to build your portfolio.
And in the end, like I said, it doesn't have to be scary, right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It could just really be you, your parents, your sister, your best buddy, and just doing a deal together. And that's it, right? That's really all it comes down to at the beginning, for the most part. It doesn't have to be with people that you've met at a real estate mastermind, and now you're trying to figure out how to do a deal together. I mean, it can, which is great, but if you're, for those who are intimidated into approaching that subject with someone you might not know as well, then I think friends and family are a great place to start. Great question for you, Brad. how would you initiate a conversation with someone who you think might be a good potential partner?
Yeah, I mean, if there's already interest, so I mean, I guess that's the first thing you want to understand is if they're even interested in real estate or investing in real estate or joint ventures. That's sort of the first point, because if they're not, well, you might as well just talk about something else. There's no point beating a dead horse. Like if they're interested, then by all means continue the conversation or start the conversation. But really, for me, I honestly feel just fine that it's more talking about what it is that you do with real estate that garners interest. And then once you have somebody that is interested, then you can kind of move into a little bit more of how it really works, how it's structured. But I find you almost have to keep it a little bit high level for the most part. Some people are a little more analytical. They want more detail, and you can kind of tell. If people are asking you more and more questions, well, they're definitely interested. And if they're asking you detailed questions, that's a great sign as well. But some people you can overwhelm them by giving too much information all at once, and I find that's not a good way to kind of put forward an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just simply talking about what it is that you've achieved with your current real estate portfolio or other joint venture investment partners, and what you do for them, what you provide for them. And if they're still interested, that's really where you can say, okay, let's set up a specific time to sit down and go through a few more details. And then you can put together a proposal and present a performer, or maybe you want to sit down and go through a binder or some information you have from another investment where you can show them how it's structured. You can show them the reporting, how close you were from that performer to your reports. And you can just spend a little bit of time, sitting down with that investment partner to say, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is what we can do together.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
What about yourself, Phil?
For the most part, yeah, most people, when I first meet them, like I said, a lot of the people I talk to about real estate investing, they typically know me already. So they know what I do. A lot of times they know what I do. And always, so, I mean, I'm always, telling them just like, hey, look, it's like, if you guys just catching up, it's like, well, this is my latest project. Really, you tell more than anything. You just kind of do a bit of catch up. It's like, hey, look, I just did this project. It's pretty cool. It's been pretty fun. And then, like I said, and you can gauge. You can typically gauge at that point whether or not they're interested in knowing more. And if they're not, then it's okay. Move on to something else. Move on to the hockey game. Move on to whatever it is you guys are kind of chatting about. But if they're interested, yeah, absolutely. Then I always leave it open. It's like, hey, I'm always looking for partners. If you guys are ever interested in doing a deal, let me know. And then I usually leave it there for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to leave the ball in their court for the most part. And then if they're ever interested, because I'm not a fan of chasing money. I don't want to.
No.
And really, you don't. That's not the position you want to be in ever. You don't want to sound desperate, or you don't want to sound like you really need this money. It's just, and really, it's fun. You want to keep it fun.
Yeah, and that type of energy doesn't work. I'll be honest with you. It just doesn't. I think for most new real estate investors, like, you're so motivated and you're just so I don't know, stoked on getting that first deal that it's almost like you're just, I don't know, you're pushing a rope uphill kind of thing.
boulder the word.
Yeah. But you're just like so gung-ho, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're trying too hard, and people can read that. People can see that right away, and it's not something you want to exude, that energy.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I mean.
And really, like, it's fun. Like, no one like, really. You don't need that deal. It's not. You shouldn't be desperate. You don't need to do a real estate deal. It'd be great. It'd be cool to do a real estate deal because it's it's fun. It's it's a great investment, that's all, whatever it is, but you don't need to do it, right? So you should never go into a situation feeling like you need to get this deal done.
No, 100%. And yeah, I think it's great to gain experience in all different scenarios. So, like I remember when I first started, I was super gung-ho. I was just like, I was so excited I just wanted to do real estate. I wanted to do it in every way possible. And I just wanted to take advantage of awesome opportunities and deals everywhere. Like I was so excited to do real estate. But exactly what you just said about the energy you exude and how, just leaving the ball in other people's court and just talking about it more so. It's by experiencing those different emotions, you then fully understand. How do I say this in a different way? I can sit back now and have that relaxed conversation with somebody, just talk about the projects that I'm working on without even mentioning that there's opportunity to do something. And should that person want to be involved, we can absolutely look at how that would work. But the energy is just different. And it's different because now I have more experience and I understand it better. And I also understand the way that you present something can actually be more appealing when you're not necessarily trying to present something. You're just simply talking about how excited you are to be working on the projects that you're working on.
I also think it's important to note that to get to that point where you feel comfortable just mentioning it, not expecting the person to respond right away with wanting to do a deal, or you not having to push a deal. I think that also comes with a bit of experience and confidence as well, right? Knowing that you don't need this person to be in this deal. You just want, if they're interested, great. But if they're not, that's not a big deal either, because you have other deals that are kind of in the pipeline and they're on the go. So it's not like you need every person you meet to be a partner in order for these deals to keep moving.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I have a saying that occasionally I use is that, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway. So, it's a case of, if you'd like to be involved, you're more than welcome, but we're already doing it. We're already moving forward. We're going to build this project, or we're going to do this project. And you're actually not asking them at all. You're just simply telling them about the things you're working on. And it's amazing. It is actually amazing how that can kind of snowball into just new opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see at the beginning when you're first starting, you want to do a deal so bad that every person you meet is a potential partner. But
it's true.
I think it takes time once you get a few deals under your belt, and that changes, and it changes for the better. It changes for the better in the sense that you don't come across as, I don't want to use the word needy, or desperate, but the energy changes. That the sense of confidence that you have, I think, is important to know that you can get the deal done regardless of whether you have this partner or not. Yeah, and really, I think that's, you don't want to come across as quote salesy, right?
Yeah, totally. Like, tell and don't sell.
Yeah.
Is kind of maybe a good way to summarize, really. But that's a good point.
And just another point is, because I just thought about right now, what is your opinion on elevator pitches?
Like, short and sweet.
but I'm just saying, at the same time, is it necessary still? Do you feel like it's still a necessary part of the whole sales process, or
I think it's a necessity. And it's funny because I said short and sweet, but that's exactly what an elevator pitch is meant to be, is short and sweet. But I think it's necessary, Phil, to plant a seed, because you have to remember that for you and I, everybody in our circles that we already know, knows, like, we are heavily involved in real estate. They already know that. But when you're meeting people for the first time, they may not know specifically what it is that you do. So if you can kind of plant a seed with people that you meet along the way, it can help develop potential for investment over time. So how do I say that in a more succinct manner? Basically, by planting a seed at the inception of a relationship, as it develops, people, they know along the way what it is that you're doing. And, after 18 months, 2 years, they may then approach you to invest. And it can be quite simply just because you very simply alluded to the fact that you invest in real estate in a succinct, clear, and concise manner back 18 months or 2 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, first of all, before we go any further, for those of listeners who don't know what an elevator pitch is, the idea is it's a quick, short, and sweet pitch to tell people what you do in the time it takes for you to ride in an elevator with someone else. Not that happens very often anymore. Or you try to avoid it, but the idea is you have 30 seconds to tell someone what it is you do.
And maybe picture you're going to like the 15th floor, not the 52nd floor in
you have 30 seconds
in the Rialto Tower of Melbourne, so exactly. It's
so
very
go ahead, sorry.
Quick, very quick pitch, few words, and it's clear and concise enough that somebody receiving that information can walk away and understand what it is that you do.
And it's important not to sound rehearsed, I guess is the best way to put it. You should rehearse it. It should be rehearsed, but it shouldn't sound rehearsed.
Yeah, I mean, it
that
can
makes
be
sense.
Totally, and it can be as simple as I do real estate.
Yeah.
And for me, to be honest, that's something that I've kind of used a little more. Is I've just simplified it because I have so many different facets of real estate going on right now. I just don't even know where to start. So instead of trying to complicate the elevator pitch, I've just simplified it to I do real estate, and if it goes somewhere from there, great. And if not, that's okay too. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what's yours, Phil?
My pitch?
What's your elevator pitch?
Oh man, it's changed so much over the years, and really, it's But really, I think when I talk to people, it comes down to it. I just I do real estate investing. That's pretty much what I'll tell them. And then if they want to know more, I'll tell them more. But I just do real estate investing. I do it with partners, and we have a awesome website where we provide investors with tools they need to improve their investing, to build their investing, for resources that they need to do it. But it really comes down to it's like, I'm involved in real estate investing, and it's a ton of fun, and I love it. And if you want to know more, we can talk more. That's it. I just love it, man. And I think it's important. I think it's important to let people know. I think it's important to let the passion out too. I think that's the thing. When
here's the thing
that attracts people, I find.
But here's the thing, Phil. Passion is not a forced emotion. It's a natural reaction to the feelings that you get by what it is you're doing.
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
You can't. I don't know, but you can't generate false passion.
No,
it just doesn't.
Yeah, it depends. If you're a good enough actor, you might be able to. But at the same time,
we're not Matthew McConaughey here.
No, but really, I think something like this too. You have to love it, man. And really, there's some hard times, but it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree. And
to build something, to make an idea reality.
There's such a problem-solving nature about it.
It is, and it's so gratifying when you're in a situation when you're able to help other people too, not just your investors, but say someone who is in dire straits because of their property, and you can get them out of that problem and make their lives better, and you still make money. Like, I mean, that's best feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, yeah, just recently had a deal, and similar to that. And it initially, I didn't think anything was going to come of it. I'd kind of said, look, I can't do anything with this deal. I'm really sorry. And I genuinely felt bad for this lady trying to sell her house. And man, I wanted I wanted to do something so bad, but I was like, oh my God, the numbers just wouldn't work for what I wanted to do with it, like, because I did need some work, and could have been a longer term thing, but I wasn't really interested in taking it on in that fashion. And I even said to this seller, like, I didn't even want to tell you what my number would be to make this work. And she, I said, just clean it up and sell it, and cut your losses and move on, and then you can get on with the rest of your life and forget about it, because I can't offer you what you want, and you would be in the hole X amount of dollars. And I just tried to basically give her my 2 cents on what I thought would be the best option for her in the end. And anyway, so I had said that, and just kind of, that was it, left it at that. And unfortunately, I couldn't do anything in that scenario. And then I had some other people that were like, oh, hey, we can't get a mortgage, but we need a bigger house. We need a bigger place, and yada, yada, yada. I was like, oh my goodness. So I connected these people, and in the end, it worked out for everybody. It was great.
That's great.
It was so good, and like, everybody got what they needed. So it was really, it's just so cool that you can do that with real estate.
Yes.
It's really cool.
And and there's so much more to real estate once you dive into it. So much more than just buying and selling, right? There's so many creative ways you can solve problems using real estate that a lot of people don't really know until you kind of do have a deeper dive. Agreement for sales, rent to owns, vendor takebacks, assignments. Like, those are all things that aren't really discussed when you just go and buy a house.
Yeah, right? Totally. And people often are, they're scared of what they don't understand, what they don't know. So, it's not easy to kind of approach people about these types of strategies. So you have to kind of be careful in how you approach it and how you explain it, and keep it simple, and kind of leave, just not leave the detail out so that they don't understand, but just kind of work your way to the detail, so that you're not just getting them throwing up defenses straight away, because you're just giving them way too much information that they're like, oh, I don't understand it. And
it's like, this is exactly what you need to do, and this is how to do it, and just go to the bank and just tell them this, and you'll be fine.
No, you just got to work through it,
for sure.
Really cleanly and carefully, and just, you've got to make sure that it's going to be a win for everybody involved. That is the number one thing that you must do, is that has to be the baseline intention. If it's not, it will likely blow up in your face, and that's not going to be good.
It's unsustainable, right? The real estate, it's a long game. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you can't do it in an honest manner, it's you're gonna end up blowing up before you get anywhere. You might get a good couple of deals under your belt, but then problem is real estate, that the circles we run in are so small.
Yeah, everybody knows who everybody is.
Yeah, they're so small, and there's only like a few hundred to a few thousand people in all of Alberta that do this, right?
Yeah,
like, what was it, 1% of 1% of the population owns more than one property.
Well, it's exactly like you said, Phil, at the start. When you mentioned just focusing on those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a great story actually was a seller in Lethbridge a couple of years ago. I was exploring purchasing a property down there, and at the time it wasn't going to work out. And literally a couple of years later, I had the seller, and if I back up, actually, at the time, you know, a realtor that I knew down there was involved. He had, you know, connected us all, and I had a potential agreement for sale pending, and went through sort of setting it all up. And then in the end, we didn't close on it. And 2 years later, the gentleman called me directly before calling any of his realtor contacts. Called me directly, and we ended up doing a deal 2 years later, direct from the seller, just because I'd built that relationship with that gentleman back then, you know, and our dealings were very good. They were very amicable. We had the right intentions. Everybody had the right intentions back at that time. It was unfortunate the deal didn't go through. At the end of the day, you know, I got an even better deal on the property, and he was able to walk away and it was a win for him. And we structured it so that, you know, it didn't cost him anything to get out in the end, and I got a good deal, and everybody was happy.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
You know, so but that's a perfect example of having the right intentions from day one. And
Mm-hmm.
I never expected him to reach out 2 years later, but we maintained a good relationship, and we worked through it with the right intentions at the very beginning. So, you know, that's just an example of developing a relationship over time that can come back and benefit you unbeknownst, like it was just out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. Like reputation in this industry is everything, right? Or like Warren Buffett said, I think I remember this good quote from him, you know, reputation is something that takes, you know, decades to build and a second to destroy.
Oh, 100.
Right. So
yeah. So if you're looking to do joint ventures, focus on relationships first.
mm-hmm.
I think that's the key.
Yeah. Relationships first. Don't expect anything back. You know, don't expect anything back at all, really. I mean, it really just the important thing is to build those relationships. And if it works out, it works out, but it shouldn't be something that's forced. Right. That shouldn't be your intention, is to make a deal happen. It should just be to build relationships. I mean, in the end, that's what makes life better. You know, it's not money. It's not, it's really just time with people well spent.
Yeah. It's the process.
Yeah. I think that's the most fulfilling part of life, really. So I think that should be everyone's first focus. And then if you can get a deal of it, great. If not, you still have a great friend.
Right on, man.
So anyway, yeah.
Cool. All right. Good chat.
Good chat, man. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Catch up.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you for listening to the Commonwealth Home Ownership Podcast. Be sure to check out all of our past episodes and our ever-growing library of content at cwho.ca. Until next time, remember to get out there, take action, and create a life of wealth by design.